And welcome back again. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander, and you're watching Keeping It Honest with yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. We keep it simple, we keep it honest, and we keep it real. If you have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011 at gmail.com, parkerman2011 at gmail.com. You can also text me. It's 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. I'd like to thank you for watching the show. If you're not watching it live, you're watching it in replay, hit the subscribe and like button and tell your friends. So our show, Keeping It Honest, what we try to do is we try to get stories out there that either you may have heard about, we go more in depth, or you didn't hear about it. And hopefully at the end of the day, it might not be everything that you like, but hopefully at the end of the day, it will get you talking and hopefully you will learn from it. So we don't just give the left side, we don't just give the right side, we try to get both sides, all sides of the story, and let you decide. So as I've said before, I'd like to thank the streaming people. And if you look at streaming these days, a lot of people are going to streaming more than regular television because people talk about the mainstream media. And I guess when you're on an alternative service, you get to hear alternative views. And I can tell you, because my background is in multimedia, mainstream media now is literally slanting you one way, depending on what kind of station you're watching. When you're on streaming, you get an alternative side of the story. And like I said, use all this as cliff notes to keep you coming. So, speaking of coming on this show today, that Riverboat incident, we're going to talk about that, which is very interesting. We're going to put our spin on it. We're going to talk about the history of where it took place and how significant it was and how sad it really was. Black Aquaman, you've heard of him? Yes, there are some people out there. Black Aquaman's not a movie. It's a real thing, and this was involved in the Riverboat incident. We're going to talk about this chair, the chairs that were thrown or used, not to laugh, at this Riverboat incident and the significance of this chair. So for that one, I want you to kind of sit down and watch that. Dark Brandon. Boy, this guy is all over the place, kind of crazy. Maybe Dark Brandon is trying to make sure that he doesn't wind up in jail. Speaking of, we're going to talk about Like Father, Like Son, Donald Trump's dad. Little history of Donald Trump's dad. How, what do they say? The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. We're going to talk about him and the times that he went to jail. So stay tuned for that. And what I want you to do is also support our Patreon site. This is what helps improve everything we do. We put a lot of hard work into this. I think you see, been doing this, like I said, for some years. Radio, TV, print, now doing streaming. I put a lot of work into it. I was recently talking to a guy, and somebody says they're journalists. Yeah, they're just reporting, but I'm a research journalist. And as you can continue to see, I like to do things with a Parker twist. So speaking of twist, we have this guy right here, Cornell West. You know him. Maybe you don't know him, but he's running for president. You wonder, Democrat, Republican? No. This guy is a Green Party participant. We know this guy, scholar guy, great debater, intimidating guy. Some people are saying that he's being put on mainstream media to kind of make people not go to the Green Party because people have asked, if people vote for him, is that going to take away votes from the Democrats and Republicans? And we're going to do a program on that, and I'm going to show you why it's not really going to take that many votes. So your alternative is you vote Republican, you vote Democrat, but what if the people running aren't the ones that you want? So you may not vote, but let's say you see this guy. Let me see what his views are. Maybe you might go Green Party to vote for him. What are Green Party's chances of winning? Well, you know what? If you get 1% of anything, you still got a chance. So stay tuned for this guy and other people from the Green Party. But there was this article. I'm going to read you this. It was written by Stephen Crockett Jr. And it's called Cornell West is so vain that he thinks the 2024 election is all about him. And after I read this, let me know your take. Let me know if you learned something. Cornell West might be a wizard. To hear him speak is to watch an African god weave spells with language, pulling from the sorrow of the trans-African slave trade to the ingenuity of the Gullah people to the pitfalls of mass incarceration, while effortlessly summoning Bible verses and jazz stanzas in the same breath. This guy is really smooth. He is kind of like a human jazz show. He weaves in things this way, he weaves in things that way, and he's very eloquent. Yes, he can get intimidating, but he does it with a smoothness. Can he sit and talk to the table with anybody? This guy right here, Cornell West, yes, he can. So he might be a genius when you really think about it. At least that's what they told his parents after young West scored around 160 on an IQ test. This guy's very smart. He would go on to graduate from Harvard University in just 3 years and would later become Princeton's first Black graduate with a PhD in philosophy. It would be interesting to see a young Cornell West. He might be a warrior. He was a warrior in elementary school. He refused to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. This is even before it was very popular. Why are we saluting this thing that don't love us? The young West asked his teacher. I'm not going to do it. Wow, so I wonder what happened in those days to him. So I want to note that I'm fully aware of what I'm about to ask and whom I'm speaking about when I say this respectfully. And this is what this writer said. Is Cornell West really this dumb? No, seriously. Cornell West, okay? So West is running for the presidency excuse me, of the United States of America as a Green Party candidate. And yes, we're talking the Green Party, an alt-left political group. It is the place where fringe left candidates who are usually hell-bent on changing people's relationship with the environment, hence the Green Party in their name, and they have no chance of winning. They run anyway and spoil the chances of Democratic hopefuls. And on that one, that's really not true. The question is, why would he run? Of course, that's not the way the members present themselves. To hear them tell it, they are the alternative to a two-party system that hasn't worked. That part is true. And fundamentally, they aren't wrong. They seem to believe in less government and more grassroots. They are anti-capitalism and long for the day when self-governance cures social injustice. Will that ever happen? The Green Party may be sincere in its beliefs. It seems like there's some honest people in there, but much like the death penalty, pandemic loan distribution, and paybacks, or even sneaker release, it's the application that needs work. So there are people with good intentions, but how do they bring those good intentions to be successful? It's impossible for most Democrats not to have a sore spot within their voting bloc after Green Party candidates. And some of these, Gary Johnson from years ago, we heard about him, and Ross Perot, if you remember him years ago, had a lot of money, but he seemed kind of off, and I guess that's how people pictured the Green Party. And also Jill Stein, who's currently out there. She's a campaign manager, ironically, for Cornell West. So we know what happened in the election with Trump and Hillary. And some people say that Hillary lost because of the Green Party. We know. Some of us feel that she did. So the biggest issue with Cornell West, he's done the work of building his name. He commands 5 figures when he speaks. I mean, he's one of the few Black intellectuals, I think this too, that can go hand in hand against somebody. He's got the right kind of friendship to finance his good decision making. And as a wizard of words, his poetic deliverance is very hypnotizing. Go on YouTube, listen to this guy talk. He's like a jazz singer, jazz poet. But now is not the time to try to find out and get the kinks out of this Green Party. Its members are disruptive and not in a good way. And that's people's impressions of the Green Party. For all of their self-righteousness and their indignant babble about change and alternatives, we would be fools to believe about the totality of their existence. The Green Party is an ego project. This is what this guy says. A vanity, resume builder, and just another opportunity for a prominent academic like West to build on his fame. Makes you think about Marianne Williamson. She's also running, but she's running as a Democrat. Some people say her campaign is in a shambles. People have been leaving. They say she's egocentric and that she's only doing this for a book tour. And she doesn't have a chance. You need to go and look up what she believes in. So Cornell West running, and if he's trying to build fame, he's already got fame. What is he trying to accomplish? So this upcoming election isn't just a battle between different ideas. We are in a fight over the conscience of America. It's a real conversation happening right now where the LGBTQ community in America has fallen so far into a death spiral that there is currently an actual public argument about whether slaves were learning stuff. Okay, you think about that. And also if businesses have the right to forbid different nationalities, different racial and ethnicities to come in their store. So this guy said he doesn't care how West tries to spend it. And that's not a diss. This man has earned the right to run. He's truly one of the smartest people in the room, no matter what room it is. So let's go back to why he's really running. Let's go back to when Barack Obama ran a couple years ago, 2008. So back then, there were a lot of Black organizations that were trying to interview Barack and find out if he was for Black America. And back then, Cornell West was doing a program with Tavis Smiley. If you remember him, he was a guy that was at one point that voice of Black America. There's always one. At that time, he was that one for about 15 years. I got a chance to interview him right before he became famous. I loved what he did. He was a champion of Black people, Black America. So him and Cornell West, they were doing a program together. And they said, hey, you know what, Barack? We want you to come on our show and talk about what you can do for the community. And that didn't happen. So that kind of, rubbed Cornell the wrong way. So Smiley and Cornell West said that their forum was a necessary Black vetting space for the Democratic nominee. Barack turned him down. But the one thing that kind of ticked Cornell West off as far as Barack Obama, and people, interviewers ask Cornell West when he had him on the show, what was his take on Barack Obama and what he did as a legacy? Should he have been a Black president? Should he have been a president that's Black? Get his answer on that. So this is interesting. So the presidency was about to come. He was about to win. So he thought that he would get tickets to come to the inaugural. And this is what he said. I couldn't get a ticket to the inaugural with my mother and my brother. I said, this is very strange. We drive into the hotel, and the guy who picks up my bags from the hotel has a ticket to the inaugural. We had to watch the thing in the hotel. So he didn't get a ticket, so he was kind of ticked off, okay? And he said, as a young brother, talking about Obama, who grows up in a white context, brilliant African father, he's always had the fear of being a white man with Black skin. And now he wants to be crowned king without following any of the necessary steps. So you think about the Green Party, they don't really have people who've been in office before. They just run for president. So I like this, what he says. If the Green Party wants to be taken seriously as a political group, I have a suggestion. Stop rolling out these quasi-political personalities every 4 years and actually do the work. Have local government candidates actually win office. Let America see the Green Party in action on a local level with some seats, any seats in any house. Have a Green Party PTA president or head of an Elks Lodge. But this idea that you insert a third party candidate in the Super Bowl of political contest without even a nationally televised primary is downright preposterous. Have a Green Party candidate as a congressman. It's the political equivalent of a bad Disney movie in which a teen main character wakes up and expects everything is owed to him. Cornell West may be a wizard, but no matter what, he's only hurting the American people by running. And I really wish Obama would have sent him those tickets because maybe we wouldn't have to deal with him being out here and us dealing with this idiot. Wow. So again, that's not my commentary. Okay. That was Stephen A. Crockett Jr. Wow. So is Cornell West helping or hurting any political party of the United States? But rest assured, when he gets on mainstream media, they're going to put him in a box and they're going to tell him or ask him, Mr. West, why are you running? You are hurting our democratic process. We're keeping it honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. And we'll be right back after this. And welcome back again. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. You're watching Keeping It Honest. We keep it simple, we keep it honest, and we keep it real. So let me know what you thought about that commentary. Again, it wasn't me. It was a commentary that was written out there, and everybody's got their views. So I want to know, do people agree with some of the views of people's opinions? Because some people may say, wow, you know what? That's a great opinion. I never thought about that. Or, you know what? I never thought about Cornell West. Let me check it out. Or anybody else that's running for office, a lot of people running. And we just need to know. If I get my drink. Real quick. So this drink, for anybody who's curious, is hot tea. So every now and then you'll see me drinking that. Just to let you know. All right. So sit back and enjoy, and let's talk. So my one thing that I do, motivation. I like this. This was by one of my favorite people, which I'm learning about, Mark Twain. Here's a great quote. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. So for people who sit on their behinds and they keep saying, I want to do this. Well, you know what? Get up, get started, and do it. Now, my one thing, the hardest question ever asked. I do this sometimes too. And I want you to think about this question and see if that applies to you. What has been the biggest reason, or what has been the biggest reason that life has taught you so far? You think about this no matter how old you are. What has life taught you so far? And how have you applied it in your situation? I think sometimes is It may be hard when you're trying to do things, but that means if you have roadblocks in the way, that means you're doing good. So think of the roadblocks as you're on your way to be successful. Just picture you're driving, and then you see this roadblock right here. You're trying to get over there, and you're like, okay, I can't get through that. I just go this way, and I go there, and I'll succeed. So roadblocks are a strategic improvement to success. Hmm, think about that. So, as I was saying before, one of the hottest topics out there is that riverboat incident, and we've been talking about that. Um, everybody's been talking about that. So it's interesting when I first heard about that, somebody told me, "Hey, did you hear about that riverboat incident?" And I guess it was on Instagram and X. Um, and so I saw a little bit about it, and it was basically like, "Oh wow, look at this fight! These people are going up against people. There's white people and black people fighting each other. There's chairs being thrown, and there's a guy who's swimming across the water, jumps on the top of the dock, and then he continues to fight." So I'm thinking, okay, like anything, mainstream media, it's something that it was okay. So I flipped it again on the phone. Then I'm in the store, and a lady is asking another lady, "Wow, did you hear about that fight?" So then it's making national news, and I looked into it. I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing." So there's this picture right here, and it started getting on Instagram and X, and people were making memes about it. So I was like, that's very interesting. Let me talk about that. And it got more in depth as I started um, reading up on it. So again, we're going to be talking about this riverboat incident. We're going to be talking about the boy. Who's the boy that got into that water? Because people were talking about him. Do we really know about him? We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the legacy of this taking place in Alabama. And then we're also going to talk about this, the chair. Everybody's talking about it. So stay tuned for that. So now let's recap a little bit. Everybody knows this picture right here, riverboat incident. So let me refresh your memory if you don't remember it. So police have captured the 4 people involved. And the police chief said, "This is not who we are as a city." So viral videos of this brawl took place in Montgomery, Alabama, and the riverfront. It's renewed also national attention dealing with racism. In essence, a fight between a group of white boaters and a black co-captain of a riverboat escalated into a fight when a group of bystanders joined the fray. And the police, they looked into this to find out, well, you know what, is this a hate crime or not? I'm going to tell you about it. We are unable to present any inciting of a riot or racially biased charges at this time. So they pretty much said that it wasn't a hate crime. Some people think it is, some people think it isn't. What's the majority of African Americans think is a hate crime? What's the majority of non-African Americans that feel it's a hate crime? And then you saw blacks against whites fighting. So the people involved, Richard Roberts, 48, Alan Todd, 23, Zachary Shipman, 25, and Reggie Gray, 42, were all involved. And they said there's going to be probably more charges likely. The police chief said there was no need for this to take place. Really, was there a need? So this is what happened. And this is my take, but reported sources that I've read. So let me know if it meets what you have read or just seen. So according to Albert, the fight was initiated by the owner of a small pontoon boat, as he refused to remove his vessel from a dock space that was needed for the Harriet II riverboat cruise ship. The ship, he says, takes hundreds of passengers at a time on 2-hour tours of the city and docks in the same space every day. So in essence, there was this boat that was already docked, and this other boat was coming. Okay. That was to pick up people, let people go, and it has its own space, which was right there. So the pilot of the ship that needed to dock pretty much said, "Hey, you know what? I need to get in that spot." And did the guy want to move? That's the story. So let's go to the story. So multiple videos, which began to go viral, they show different angles and vantage points of the ordeal that happened. So the two guys, they kept kind of sparring with each other. One guy's moved, no, I'm not, all that. So it escalated where another man plunged at Pickett and he threw a punch. Within seconds, at least four other white men joined in and he started beating Pickett when he was on the ground. Remember, this guy is trying to park. Seconds later in a video, another black man runs to the pileup trying to stop the situation, which appears to work for a short time as the passengers of the vessel retreat to their small boat. So it seems like it's working just a little bit, but there's more. As a riverboat docks, video shows several more people, boat employees and onlookers who are all black, approach the small vessel and a large fight breaks out. At least one woman was thrown into the water. Wow. And two people were hit with chairs before police intervened and arrested several people, both black and white. The 16-year-old white male who was assaulted worked with the Riverboat company and had driven a smaller boat to the dock to deliver ship employees from the cruise ship. So the Montgomery police chief called this an isolated incident. I think people will view this incident as the actions of a few individuals and not our entire community. Really? Look at this picture. Okay. But that hasn't stopped people from talking about this. Really haven't. So let's talk about the elephant in a room dealing with the story and social media. Okay. Elephant in a room. Some people don't want to talk about that, but we're going to talk about that. So some people thought this was racial. They started putting some memes out there with people dealing with chairs, such as this one. Dr. King Monument. What do you see? You see a chair. So some people thought this was funny. Well and good, which is good, because they were talking about racial activity, but they were able to, because of social media, make fun of it. They made these chairs popular. Chair right behind me. You can't see it, but we'll talk about it later. Very popular. So then they started talking really about the racial issue. And the more I looked into this, what happened in Alabama, the more I saw the history. So jokes aside, an elephant in the room, historians have made significance of what happened in Alabama. So downtown Montgomery, not far from the brawl took place, an historic marker commemorates the city's role in the trans-African slave trade. And here's where it gets serious and deep. For many people who saw the fight, the video served as a blunt illustration of race relations in the United States, both past and present. It wasn't just fighting and fun and memes. This happened not too far from where history was taken. So this went in this area from slavery to the civil rights era to today. And some of the historians have said, you can't help but conclude that this was racially motivated when you think about the history of Montgomery, Alabama. This was a huge slave trading community. What really caused such a visceral response from the Black community, think about this, was this sense that these white men couldn't believe that the Black man had authority over them, that they had authority to tell them to move their boat. Or in some people's eyes, it's just a guy saying, I need you to move. But appearances are what they are in the eyes of the beholder. So what's not lost on critics, the significance of Montgomery, Alabama, is this African-American story. Dating back to the 1800s, the downtown part of the city became a hub for the domestic slave trade in the South. with tens of thousands of enslaved Africans brought to America through the same dock where the brawl took place. So you see that brawl. Was it a black and white brawl? We don't know, but that is also the same brawl, that area, that dock where slaves were brought to America, ironically. So between 1808 and 1860, the enslaved population of Alabama grew from less than 40,000 people to more than 430,000 people. It jumped up 10 times as much. Wow. In 52 years, from 40,000 people to over 400,000 people, making Alabama, now listen to this as we looked at that brawl, the home of one of the largest slave populations in America by the start of the Civil War. The forced migration of thousands of enslaved people from the upper South to the deep South in the 19th century is a phenomenon most people don't understand. You can't understand, I like the statement, civil rights or the Civil War without an appreciation of slavery and what the slave trade did to places like Montgomery. So should we, okay, hold your letters and comments? You can't understand civil rights or the Civil War without an appreciation of slavery. An appreciation of slavery. And that doesn't mean you appreciate slavery, but it means you look and think, wow, slavery. It was really serious. And then you look at this fight. So today, the EJI, which houses the National Lynching Memorial and the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, ironically, just miles from that Riverboat dock incident, stands as a stark reminder of the city's complex past. Choked up reading this. The organization has documented over 4,400, all right, 4,400 lynchings of Black men and women and children across the United States between 1877 and 1950. 1877 to 1950. That's a little over 70 years ago. There's still word lynching. Think about this area, Montgomery, Alabama. So 359 of them were in Alabama, the fifth most of any state, almost exclusively at the hands of white supremacists. So you think about when times change, do people change? Just because you get the right to vote, does that mean that your mind changed? I always say Civil Rights Act 65. People voted on that. Does that mean that people believed that African Americans should have the right to vote? So 65 Act, that's about 50 something years ago. So if you're 20, you're probably in your 70s now. If you didn't like racial diversity back then, just because the law's been passed, does that mean you still agree with the laws? So when you're bringing up your kids and you're telling them, don't like this race, don't like that race, and then they're bringing up their kids, don't like this race, don't like that race, and then they're bringing up their kids, don't like this race, don't like that race, then you're at the race separation that we're in the midst of today. And if we don't look at that dock incident, then there's other incidents that we can look at. So in the mid 1800s, thousands of enslaved people were transported on steamboats and railroads from New Orleans up the Alabama River to Montgomery. Wow. Many of the railroads had been constructed, think about this, by slave labor. So giving people who were slaves opportunities to work, does that mean that, wow, they were forced to make railroads, so now they've taken that skill and used it to their benefit? But what was their benefit if they were building these railroads to put people on these railroads to bring them across the country? Enslaved people would arrive on Montgomery's riverboat or at the train station where they would be chained. They would be chained. So here's a picture right here. Okay. Slave trade. Picture this. Years ago, African Americans were brought up on a stand and were bought and sold. Wow. We think we have it hard. So they were chained together and paraded down Common Street. They would later be sold in the city's slave markets, right there, city slave markets. By 1860, there were more than 400,000 enslaved people in the state, as I said before. Slavery's impact could be seen in everything. Enslaved labor fueled the local economy and it influenced everything from the political order to religious life. Think about that. It influenced everything from the political order to religious life. If you scratch hard enough at the surface of any of those matters and many others today, you'll likely find the legacy of slavery lying somewhere underneath. And is legacy a good thing? Not when it's involved in slavery. It was once Alabama, the capital of the Confederacy. It's often called the cradle of the Confederacy because in 1861, it briefly served as the first capital of the Confederate States of America. So now 11 states had succeeded from a union after Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860. Delegates from 6 of those states, South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and Louisiana, conversed in Montgomery in February 1861 to officially establish their own government. Everybody came to Alabama. In May 1861, the Confederate government moved from Montgomery to Richmond, Virginia, which remained the capital of the Confederacy until the end of the Civil War. Interesting though, again, Alabama, this is the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement. Montgomery was ground zero for protests during the Civil Rights Movement. The Montgomery bus boycotts took place. So you look at this picture, these are people walking. Back then, people say, you know what, we're not going to go on that bus in Montgomery. We're going to walk to work. Where is a civil unrest now? We don't have to be violent. What they did was they walked. Okay. This was the third month that they did this. And it was a 381 bus boycott taking place in Montgomery, Alabama. Where are those boycotts at now? Why aren't we doing what we did back then? We worked hard to get where we're at today, but you can't tell it. You see these pictures right here. One of my favorite pictures, but it's a long time ago. Dr. King and his people walking. So that's the Selma March. And Montgomery also played a pivotal role in the Selma March on March 7, 1965. That's where hundreds of people marched from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery to demonstrate the fight for equal voting rights for Black Americans. But on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, the march turned violent when state troopers attacked the marchers, leaving many injured. The protest, later dubbed Bloody Sunday, sparked national outrage and ultimately led to the passage of the Voting Rights Act in August 1968. And if you know anything about John Lewis, he was a great congressman who died a few years back. One of my favorites, because up to the day that he died, he still was in bed in hospital fighting legislation to make it better for African Americans. And so he was one of those guys back then with Dr. King and Jesse Jackson, or Reverend Jesse Jackson, who fought back then for civil rights. He was a young guy. He got beat on that bridge. And he got beat, and the people that got beat, it was so terrible. I wasn't around, but I heard about it. It made such an impact that not too long after that, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed. And I don't believe in conspiracies, but I always felt back then when African Americans were fighting, they were saying, you know what? Society was saying, you know what? Man, these African Americans, they're really fighting. They're protesting everything. They're doing these walks. We got to do something. And maybe some of the politicians got together and said, you know what? They're talking about this. Let's give them this. Let's pass this right so they can vote. So they passed the right back in 65. That's now, like I said, almost 70 years later. If you look at some of the people, where are some of the people at as far as young people? The legacy, was it passed down? If you don't like what's out there, then fight. Not physically, but fight. Vote. That's been my question. So I kind of feel it was pacified because after they got the right to vote, they kind of just sat back too. And it's a shame how we're still fighting. No pun intended but that riverboat in some people's eyes proves that. So Montgomery today, how is it today? In April 2018, the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, a museum honoring lynching victims and enslaved, it was opened in Montgomery. Wow, a solemn reminder of what took place. It's located on the site of a former warehouse where Black people were brought and sold into slavery. In 2019, good news, 54 years after Bloody Sunday, Montgomery elected his first Black mayor, Stephen Reed. And he's still here, which is good. He's still there, which is really good. But let's go back. What started out as something kind of maybe funny in some people's eyes. We need to remember what people were doing back then. We need to remember the walks, the protests, everything that people did. We need to remember the hard truth. Montgomery, Alabama, and parts across the country. We need to remember history because if we don't remember history, we're going to tend to forget it. So we are just keeping it honest. Even though it seems like in some people's eyes, African Americans aren't still chained to the history of slavery. Well, in some people's eyes, they still are. Remember, if we don't remember history, we will tend to forget it and it will come back again. So this Alabama incident was no, whether it's racial or not, laughing matter. And welcome back again. You're truly Anthony Parker. You're watching Keeping It Honest, where we try to keep it honest, keep it simple, and keep it real. We thank you for supporting us. Don't forget to tell your friends what we do here. Hit the like button, spread it, let everybody know what we do. If you have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly at parkerman2011 at gmail.com, parkerman2011 at gmail.com. Brandon, what is up with Brandon? A laughing matter, I tell you, it's kind of funny. Don't forget to vote for Brandon. This is cool, Joe Biden. Cool, Joe Biden. Man, look at him. Look at him right here. Got those glasses going strong. Man, now he is known as Dark Brandon. What is the deal with that, huh? Man, here's a guy running for president. I don't know if he has an identity problem, but the image of Brandon, you go on the website. I was on the website looking up, his inaugural page. And that's what I saw. And I'm like, well, who the heck is Brian? How many people know this guy as Brandon? Sorry about that. Identity problem, trying to get with the cool kids after everything that's been happening. Who knows? So this Brandon thing, it started off. There was a guy, okay, that his name is Brandon Brown, a driver. And he was being interviewed. And people were booing him, okay? And as they were booing him, they were pretty much giving some cuss words and everything. And so he pretty much said, let's go, Brandon. They were saying something opposite. So he said, let's go, Brandon. And it really meant, forget Brandon. I'm taking out the F word. So Donald Trump used that and started, calling Joe Biden Brandon. So then Brandon's people, because it's like really just goofy. Joe Biden people say, you know what, let's go with this. Let's call him Dark Brandon. So you're taking something that was meant as an insult from an opposing candidate, and you're trying to make it of your own. Funny story for me. Wow, man. All right. So let's go to Donald Trump and his dad. So his dad, Fred Trump, back in 1927, there were Ku Klux Klan rally taking place. And this is interesting because this is one of the things when, like father, like son, Donald Trump, possible indictments, indicted pretty much, may go to jail. Well, his dad, Fred Trump, interesting story about him. He did go to jail a couple times. Back in the 20s, he was arrested for being a KKK sympathizer. He was in a crowd where the police arrested him. He was eventually gotten out of jail, but he was supporting the Klan. And Donald Trump to this day says he didn't know anything about that. But I thought that was really interesting, Donald Trump's dad. And then back in the 76, in the 70s, he was arrested because he was a poor landlord, didn't take care of his bills. It was easy to do to take care of his bills, but he was a slumlord. Some people say Donald Trump was a slumlord. But he was arrested twice too. So does the apple fall far from the tree? Well, you be the judge of that. And one of my favorite stories, here we go. This kid right here. Let's talk about the boy. His name is Aaron. He has an attorney. He's the kid that swam in the water at the dock incident, went there and started helping people and saving their, I guess, not lives, but saving them from being beat. 16-year-old, he's called the Black Aquaman, and he swam into the ocean from the boat he was on to go and help with the fight. So in the face of adversity, Aaron selflessly came to the rescue. And his parents says that they were very proud of him. The only thing I did, he said, was what I was taught to do, and that's to do the right thing. Wow. Well, congratulations, Aaron, to you. Man. So this chair right here. The history of this chair, folding chair. Chair kind of like this one right here. And the funniest thing is we couldn't find a regular chair. So we had to get one of his relatives. But this chair, folding chairs, were involved, of course, in the Riverboat incident because you need a chair. But what's the importance of this chair? Well, the folding chair, the first folding chair, which I thought was interesting. And how many people would have known this? Was invented by an African American male. All right. And the significance of the folding chair, Shirley Chisholm ran for president back in the 70s. And she said as she was running for president, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Because you can't really bring this kind of chair, but it's because it's not folding. The significance of the chair, very important. So the guy is named Alexander, and he's an African American male. And as I try to find his name here, he invented this folding chair back in 1911. That's when he got the patent. And his name is Alexander. Great name. Not a relation, but we could be brothers. So there's no known photos of this guy who invented chairs like this. I tried to find a photo and I couldn't find it. But this chair, invented by Nathaniel Alexander, how many people knew? Black history lesson, that it was invented by a black man. So we know the stories of the riot, we know the story of the Black Aquaman, but we didn't know the story about the folding chair. He didn't get a lot of money, but next time you sit in a chair, which I know you are because you take a folding chair to the games, you take it to picnics, you have it even outside your house. Take a seat and give credit to Nathan Alexander and creating this folding chair. Enough said. So before we close, I want you guys to know about this story, these two stories, because we have a little bit more in depth on it online. Just look it up. Just say no, Bernie. I am so disappointed, Bernie, with you and the money, over $200,000, that your nonprofit through your wife received from a big corporation. Get online, look that up. Not too many people were talking about that. Bernie Sanders, we talk about candidates. Let me know if this has turned you into not a Bernie Sanders friend, supporter. I know now, because if I read is true, and I've stood up for Bernie because Bernie has talked about big greed in government. If Bernie, and it's been proven, has taken money from big corporations where he's said time and time again, you shouldn't take money. Well, then this is what I think of Bernie. Prove me right by proving me wrong. And here is one of the saddest stories, a really tragic story, which we're going to be talking about, if we haven't already, on one of our specials. Amani Robeson. She was missing for a couple of weeks. Single mother of 4. Found out, you're going to have to go to a streaming episode to look that up, Amani Robinson, the story of her. Don't believe that everybody missing because of Carly and other people, that they're not really missing. Take every story separately, okay? Because you never know, it could be true. So this lady right here, you have to hear about it, go to one of the streaming shows, look up, Keep It Honest with Anthony Parker Alexander, and you can get a story on her and also get a story on Bernie. But it saddens me that there are a lot of people out there taking advantage of people in society, whether it's Bernie or whether it's somebody like this young lady. We thank you for watching the show. Tell your friends. We try to keep it honest, try to keep it simple, we try to keep it real. Hit the like button and support button. Go to my Patreon page. It's like a PBS fundraiser. Let us know by supporting the show what you think of the hard work that we do, because if it wasn't for you guys, we would not be here. Any show you need to find out about what we've done previous shows, just type in Keep It Honest with yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. So in closing, remember, believe in yourself. Always believe in yourself. Okay, keep your head up. Always believe in yourself, and therein will lie your answer. And my question again, what has been the biggest lesson that life has taught you so far? Remember, we have obstacles. If we can get past those obstacles, we're doing good. So every obstacle that you have gets you closer to your goal. Think about that. I am Anthony Parker Alexander. We keep it honest, keep it simple, we keep it real. Keep your head up, always believe in yourself, and therein will lie your answer. God bless.